Welcome to the One Rental to Freedom podcast, creative investing strategies for building wealth and financial freedom through rentals. I'm your host, Chad Harris. Hey everybody, welcome back. As always, great to see you and glad you're with us. Today's episode is a recording from a recent 3-day workshop, and it is one of my clients, Jim, sharing what he's been able to accomplish in the past 2 years and his experience in buying rentals using other people's money. And think about this, in the last couple of years, he has created over $500,000 in equity. How long would it take you to save $500,000 from your paycheck? And in a short amount of time, he was able to create it by doing deals the exact way that we talk about with the one rental to freedom model. So enjoy him sharing kind of his experience and how he's done deals. And as always, if you're interested in finding out how you can be a part of the group coaching program, you can go to truewealthinvestors.com, hit the apply button, and it'll have you answer just a couple of questions, and then I'll reach out and schedule a time to talk. All right. We'll make sure you're a good fit for the group, as well as that the group will be able to deliver exactly what you're looking for. If you're frustrated, tired of putting in a lot of time and effort and not seeing the results you want, group coaching will drastically help you see the progress you're after. All right. Enjoy today's discussion. But anyway, I invited Jim on to share, Jim and Scott to share their story. Um, so they've been working this process for probably 2.5 years now, I think it's been somewhere around there. And my main thing in inviting them to share their experience is because for a lot of us, when we first think about it, we're going to talk to people and they're going to lend us money. It just seems daunting, right? And so I think it's beneficial to have people who have done it share kind of what their experience is, how it's gone, what those interactions with lenders are actually like, what kind of response they get from lenders, things like that. So, so Jim and Scott, welcome, guys. Let's see if I can I spotlight you guys? Oh man, oh
Yeah.
buddy, now we're getting serious. All right. So yeah, Jim and Scott, I wanted to invite you guys. I appreciate you coming on and share some of your story, how you've been buying rentals, how that process has gone, what it's been like to raise money, and then we'll have some time for questions too if you're up for it.
Okay.
This group's been super nice. They haven't asked me any terrible questions. They haven't said any mean things about me at all. So I know you'll be safe. They'll ask you good questions too. So, all right. So fill people in. It's been 2.5 years. You've been doing exactly what we're teaching in this 3-day training, right? Buying
Yeah.
rental without using your own money, raising the money from everyday private lenders, self-managing the properties, and you've just started with the DSCR refinance. But I guess to start, what's your business? Where are you at now? Things like that.
Okay. We we do buy and hold. We are currently up to what is it? 8 rental properties now. Or is it 9? Did we just closed on the
I was
ninth?
thinking you closed on your ninth.
Yeah, we just closed on the ninth 2 weeks ago.
You know
Um,
that's a good sign when you can't remember how many houses you have. That's
yeah,
a good sign. Things are moving.
we we are in discussion with a seller who I just called today to give him the offer for another property. So hopefully that goes well. He's interested in the offer that I gave him, and he's just going to discuss it with his wife. So he's going to give me a call back. We'll find out. But we bought, we have six private lenders, ranging anywhere from 10,000 to almost 250,000. Um, and you know, we bought our first property in 2023, and then we've been, um, was it 2023 or I think it was 2023. Um, and then we've been averaging about three properties per year. Um, since then, hopefully this year we double that average. That's the goal, but we'll see. Uh, yeah, the private lenders. I mean, it's just calling everybody and offering them an opportunity to hear what you have to say. You're not trying to sell them on anything. It's just a discussion with people and hey, I'm buying real estate and I'd, like to share with you what we've been working on, what we're doing here in Dayton, and trying to be excited about it, and have that excitement in your voice, which is sometimes hard
Mm,
because it's slow rolling sometimes.
that's awesome. So one, gotta say, congrats on the nine properties, right?
Yeah.
That is awesome. That's a threshold very few people get to. So congrats on that, and that's a ton of equity. The last I forget how long ago it was. We were on a coaching call and we were working out what's the equity that you have in them, and it's about $500,000 if I remember correctly. I mean, that's a big chunk.
Yeah. Well, I think the houses that we got private lenders on, those ones were like the very first ones we bought, and even in the last couple of years, now looking at those properties, they're worth 10, 20, sometimes even 30,000 more than what I originally estimated. So we have more equity sitting there. Um, so the first, well, no, not the first DRC. We just did our second DSCR loan. We just closed on that
Okay.
yesterday. So we bought that property for 41. We put another 41,000 into it. I estimated, I don't know how I was, this is a good thing to be this far off. I was estimating the ARV to be about 123. Well, the appraisal came back at 163. So we pulled out, you know, we they gave us 75% loan to value. We pulled out an extra 30,000 on that. And, we're just gonna run with it and buy more properties.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So, and you pull out 30,000 extra cash, you pay the private lender, you get the money back for the rehab, the purchase and rehab, and you still have a lot of equity in that deal, right? You were still at, I don't know,
Yeah. It was, yeah, still
still have about
40,000,
40,000. Yeah.
40,000 in equity, roughly.
Yeah. 40,000 in equity still in the deal, 30,000 in your bank account. That's a pretty good day. I like
Right.
it.
Did you find that property?
Say what?
How did you find that property?
Well, that one was actually off the MLS. It needed a lot of work. It was one of the properties that, you know, people, most people would not buy. Um, you know, um, Most banks will not lend on a property in that type of shape. I mean, it was pretty much a full rehab. Um, so that, you know, MLS is tough. We recently switched. Well, we still look on the MLS, but we did switch to direct marketing, using mailers. So. The one we closed on was kind of indirect result of that. We were actually looking at the house next door, and there was someone sitting on the porch, and they asked us if we were going to be buying that house. I said, well, we're looking, and just explained that, we buy houses. And she's like, "Oh, this lady I think is selling or wanting to sell." So and a couple of the neighbors happened to be standing there too. So I handed out about 5, 10 business cards each, just gave them a stack and said, "Here you go." And the lady ended up calling me, and I ran some numbers originally when looking at that one. So I had an idea of walking in, and then as I walked around, I just kind of I had a spreadsheet on my phone and I plugged the numbers in. And as I was leaving, I said, "Well, we can offer you 78 for it." She goes, "How about 80?" And I said, "Well, let me verify with my business partner, Scott." And we were good with it. So I called her
Okay.
back a few hours later and she accepted the 80 and we closed within 10 days. I think it was pretty quick.
Yeah.
She wanted to be out and gone and move to Florida. So
Mhm.
she was pretty happy with that. But the one that we did, the DSCR loan, yeah, that was off the MLS. Um, like I said, the MLS, can be, um, you know, you we put in we put in offers, like multiple offers weekly. We just run the numbers, make the offers. We have a realtor that's willing to put in those offers for us. So their offers put in sight unseen. However, we have a contingency um, that we have 5 days to walk through the property, and the offer is contingent on the offer and the earnest money because we got burned on this one. Well, not really burned. We got our ended up getting the earnest money back, but it took 2 years. But earnest money and offer are contingent on a satisfactory walkthrough. So if you can find a realtor that is willing to do that, that would be good. I mean, she works with investors, so we're putting in offers sight unseen because if they're not even willing to entertain your offer based on the numbers, then
That's the
there's no
point.
no no point of going to look at the property and wasting your time with that.
It's awesome. And we've been talking about the deal flow and lead sources of leads. And in the past, you've gotten deals from wholesalers. You did a lot with the MLS. And just recently, you started with the direct mail, and that's really performing well, right?
Yeah, above and beyond what they estimated would come in. I mean, they said it would probably take 3 to 6 months to get calls. Nobody calls on the first mailing, but every time the mailers go out, within 5 or 6 days, I start getting calls. And so far, every month, I've been averaging, I would say, 5, 6 decent leads. Um, you
That's
know,
awesome.
I have gotten a couple calls like, "We're not selling, stop sending me your cards." I'm like, "Well, just throw it in the garbage." I don't know, why you get so upset about it. But
Yeah. And I think someone else mentioned this. Um, the calls that we get through that direct mailing have a very different tone than when you're, uh, working, whether it's
cold calling,
cold calling or something, because these folks are calling you because they are motivated to sell. They have, as you would say, Chad, they have a problem they want to solve,
Mhm.
and suddenly you've provided an outlet for a possible solution.
Yeah. Yeah, they have a pain. They're super motivated.
Yeah.
You're the solution. That's a much different conversation than you calling and saying, "Would you like to sell your home at
Right.
123 Main?" Right? For sure.
yeah, yeah. And a couple of those calls I received, they told me that they had contacted a realtor multiple realtors, and the realtors would say, well, in order to list this, you need to fix this, this, and this. And particularly that one house, the house that we bought for 80, she needed, the roof fixed and um, the garage fixed and all this stuff before she could list it. And she's like, well, you know, do I take out a loan? I don't have that kind of money. Now I got to take out a loan to sell my house, and then we come in with a cash offer, and she wanted to just sell and move to Florida. She was like adamant. So as soon as she agreed with the 80,000, I went over there the next day. We signed a contract, and she was like, "How fast can we close?" I was like, "Well, that's up to the title company, as fast as they can get it done." So, and they got it done within, well, it was like 10 days, I think.
That's awesome. So, um, let's say specific to the private money, raising private money. So yesterday we talked through the process of how to raise private money, making a list of people, right? Well, the three ways we talked about it, finding lenders was introducing yourself where you share the profits with people in your real estate business, social media posts, and making a list of contacts, those people you know well, and then working out from there. And I know some of the questions were kind of, well, these are people you know. And when you initiate that conversation, how do you get over the awkwardness of trying to convince them to lend you money? That's probably a bad wording.
Yeah.
But what's been your experience when because you followed that, you both have followed that exact process, right?
Mm.
And when you call somebody and say, "Hey, our business is growing, we're opening it to more lenders, and we thought of you," what kind of responses are you getting?
Um, Most of it was positive because, I tried to follow that script. And I think that, it took a little bit, so full disclosure, I've been working with Chad for it's got to be 3 years now.
Okay.
Yeah. So, um, Chad, you've helped me tweak it. We spent a lot of sessions tweaking the conversation, and but the biggest thing was, like you said, I, we're opening our business up to a couple new lenders. You're only doing a couple, even though you're going to take all the private lenders that come in. You hope they just swarm you,
You
but
never turn down money,
yeah,
right?
yeah, we're not turning anybody away. Um, so we're opening up to a couple new lenders. So creating some, I don't know what you would call that. What's the word?
Scarcity.
Yeah, scarcity. I thought of you and you wanted to be able to provide you with information on what we're doing. You're not, and um, that's not the perfect script, I think, but basically, you're not trying to sell them on the deal. You're trying to just say, "Hey, you know, I'm excited about what I'm doing, and I want to share what we're doing with you." And then, if it's something that fits, great. If not, no big deal. Um, so and then right away going into um, I have some availability on this day, this day, this day. What would work for you? Trying to set that meeting right away because I found that if you don't set the meeting right away, it's harder to get that set.
Mhm.
A couple days go by, you're trying to call them back, and so just set the meeting right away. Most people were like, "Oh yeah, I'd love to hear about what you're doing," especially when you talk about real estate. Real estate is exciting, and
Yeah.
you kind of have to present it in an exciting way. Um, and
That,
so go ahead, Scott.
no, I was going to say, I think in general, there is I think in general, people do understand that real estate is a good investment. And many have told me, it's like, yeah, I really, I thought I really wanted to get into, but I really don't know how. And I said, well, I have a way you can get in.
That's awesome. Yeah. As simple as that, right?
Yeah,
I can
Yeah.
help you get what you just said you want.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I've had a couple people call me, and because they see what I'm doing on Facebook, I'll make posts on Facebook, and oh, I see you're buying real estate and stuff, and I'd like to sit down with you and do you have time to talk about it? I'm like, yeah, sure. And it ends up being, I'm talking to them about real estate and all the ins and outs and, property management and, maintenance calls and finding properties and rehab. And they're like, whoa, that seems like a lot. And they're like, well,
Yeah,
maybe well, can I just invest with you? Kind of thing. So, um, that leads into that discussion. So people just they like to, when you talk about buying real estate, they want to hear what's going on.
yeah, I like that. And I'm trying to think over the years, like the only objection or struggle I think I remember you having was where they're too busy. Like the kids are in activities, they're kind of in that stage of life where they're overwhelmed. And it was a struggle to get the meeting set with a couple of people. But was there ever anybody for both of you that when you called and you said you thought of them and wanted to share what was going on, that they were angry, didn't want you to call, didn't want you to talk to them?
No,
Yeah.
nobody was ever angry. We did get some no's. I mean, you're gonna get no's. You got to get past that maybe fear of um, what not
Rejection, fear of
rejection,
rejection.
fear of rejection. There
Rejection.
you go. Fear of rejection. Yes. Got to get over that. Nobody was angry. People said no. Um, Mainly, people who they're like, I don't have any money whatsoever. And, and I try to get it across that, well, you know, because, I mean, we do have people that only invested 10,000. I mean, I say only, but in the world of real estate and investing, that's not a lot, but like, I have people that only invested 10,000. We have someone that did 10,000, another person that did 13. That's what they had, that's what they could invest, and that's what we ran with. Um, and then other people who had the full amount for a property. And there's some different ways of doing that if you want more information on that.
There was
Scott, would you say the same thing?
Say that.
Oh, I said, Scott, would you say the same thing, or is your experience the same?
yeah, I think so. And I was actually going to comment. So um someone previously here may have been in the VIP session had a question about how do you have to convince investors that you can, sort of are good for paying things back. Um, and our largest investor, and I think Chad, I think you mentioned similar experience. So our largest investor did not invest all his money at once with us. What he did was we we came to him and both of us actually met with him and his wife. And he made an investment on one of the houses. And then after, gosh, was it a year even, Jim?
It was about a year.
About a year. He he's like, he had more money. He's like, hey, and then uh, I think we did that twice, right? So he sort of, I think, did a multi-step investments. Um, so um, so, and even though I um, personally knew him and his wife, um, so there was certainly already some trust there, but this was a new thing. So he's like, willing to trust us with that initial investment. And then, he's getting a check every month, and now he's getting a much larger check every month. But, that that sort of that trust grew. Um, and again, I think this is not having private investors is not something, it's not an experience that everyone has, right? We don't like grow up doing this. And so it's a new kind of thing for most people. And so there is some, um, you know, I think there's going to be some hesitancy, but there has to be some, you know, rapport and trust between that private investor and yourself. And then once they've experienced it, then it's like they're comfortable.
Yeah.
So then they're willing to invest more. And again, when I speak with private investors, it's or potential private investors, it's always about um, whether this investing works for sort of their goals, right? And so I spoke with several folks who um, were sort of in not retired, but sort of in that place of nearing retirement, and uh, they actually had a small group and they had read books, and so they were sort of knew about when you're you have different buckets of money. You can put retirement money into stock market, which is you know potentially high gain but also high risk, and then you have your fixed investment bucket. And I said, yeah, I said this is clearly a fixed investment bucket. However, we offer better than most fixed
Yeah.
investments. And so you're doing better than that. But it does have to work for you, right? Again, with investors, it's sort of like with sellers. Investors are investing because this is something that's going to work for them and is fits into their sort of investing profile.
I love how you word that, Scott, because like very clearly it comes across that you are not trying to convince them to lend you money, right?
Yeah,
You are presenting how it works and you're listening to them, and if it's a good fit for what they're looking for, great. If it's not, no worry, right? No worries. We caught up. We had an enjoyable whatever 30 minutes together, and we both move on. It's not a problem. And
yeah,
how you said your biggest lender lent you a little bit and then lent you more and then lent you more. That's what I've seen with a lot of my lenders too. And
yeah,
the lenders that I've kept just kept lending more and more and more because they're thrilled with the result. They get their monthly checks, everything works well. And
yeah,
that's the easiest money you'll ever raise after they've funded three deals, right? Or funded two
yeah,
deals. That
yeah,
third
yeah,
deal, oh man, that's unbelievably easy.
yeah,
And I think this is the lender. I remember his first deal, you met with him. He agreed to lend the money and then he said he wanted to see the property. Is that this lender?
yeah,
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
very, yeah.
And I remember that situation because it was all of a sudden the house wasn't done yet, right?
yeah.
And and you were nervous. Oh, what's he gonna think? And calling the contractors, can we get this done right away? And
Well, I was like, we need to wrap this, and this up so it looks a little more
Yeah, yeah,
complete or better.
yeah.
yeah,
And then, if I remember right, he called you and said, "Oh, I already drove by the property. It looks great. Everything's
Yeah, yeah,
fine."
yeah.
Like
Yep.
it really wasn't anything to worry about. It was just kind of the nerves of going through it that first time.
Yeah, in fact, and just getting back to the is it right for the investor? I was just talking with someone last night. I was at a play and met some folks I knew and hadn't, had not talked about this, but they had seen posts that we were buying property. And I said to her, I said, yeah, I said, we have, investment opportunities. Because she said that she was thinking about doing it. I said, well, we have investment opportunities. And she just asked me very quickly. And she said, well, we've made a lot of money from the stock market. I said, yeah, I said, I have too. But as you get to retirement, you can also lose a lot of money. And losing at the wrong time is never a good thing. I said, so we offer, a fixed return. And I said, if that's something you're interested in, just let me know. She goes, oh, I don't know if Terry, as her husband, don't know if he'd do that. I said, well, I said, as you head toward retirement, you do want to try and put some money into there so that it's not all at risk. And so I'm thinking, so in my mind, what I've done is I've planted a seed and it might come back.
Yeah. Well, and you guys have done a good job. I know we've worked on how you can update people you've met with and consistently tell them, we're doing this deal, we've got this renovation done, we've rented this property, so that even if they don't necessarily lend to you right away, they see that your business is growing and that everything's moving forward. And then when you do talk to them again about a new deal, it's an easy conversation because they've seen everything you've been doing over the months or year.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's open it up to the crowd here. Are there any questions you guys have? I want to be true to Jim and Scott's time. Are there questions you have for them about what it's been like with private lenders, direct mail, managing? Jim and Scott both have, or they have a very part-time assistant who handles all the tenant interactions, work orders, things like that. So the group met Shay this morning. We talked a little bit about that process of hiring a part-time assistant. So I'm sure they're open to questions like that too. Go ahead, James.
Yes. So I'm curious about the $10,000 investor and the $13,000 investor. Um, that doesn't seem like it's helpful in doing a deal. So what makes that, what's your thought on that? Does that develop? Do you do that because that develops into something more long term? Does that really help in a specific deal, or why is that worthwhile to you?
Well, any little bit of money is going to help.
Mm.
Um, that's my thought process. And yes, my thought is that um the 10,000 or 13,000 may lead into to more. What we did with those particular loans is they are not tied to a property. They
Uh-huh.
are on a promissory note um tied to our company. So
Oh,
that, yeah, I mean, you can do a couple of loans, and Chad would know a little bit better about this, but um, we stayed clear of putting too many loans on one property because of SEC rules and things like that. We just do one loan per property.
Mhm.
So the 10,000 and 13,000, they're on promissory notes, which makes that nice is that if we refinance a property, they're not tied to it. That money might be in that property, but we can refinance that and then move it to another property. We have two other lenders that are on promissory notes as well. So what we found, if you have a lender who's like, look, I want this to be an investment. I don't need the money. I want to roll that money over. we have a couple investors that have done that, and they're at they invested 55,000 and I believe either 60 or 65,000. So they're on a promissory note that states the one is 10 years. So it's 50,000 for 10 years. That compounds annually. So the note states after 10 years, we owe them back the 50,000 plus the all the interest, right? So it compounds on an annual rate. Our rate is 6%. So, but that's kind of nice in the fact that, again, that money can be used to buy a property. We can refinance that property without paying the lender back, and then we can just move that money to another property. So that's where those little amounts, those where those kind of come in handy as well. I mean, we can just shuffle that money around wherever we want. Um, and then that's where we started using the DSCR loans, because we do have this pool of money that we can move around.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
There are instances occasionally where, you have this deal and it's going to require 100,000 and one lender says, "Oh, well, I have 90." And it's beneficial to have a small lender just to pick up the slack or to cover the rehab or something like that. So, yeah, I'm Jim and I and Scott and I are all in the same camp. I've never turned down money. If they want to lend 10, figure out a way to provide an investment for 10, and that'll grow over time and they'll lend you more. Good question, James. Anybody else have a question?
I'd love to get more into that promissory note versus because we've been talking about, mortgage deeds. But how do you
Mhm.
work a promissory note into your business? Um, as far as paying, obviously, 10, 50 grand on a promissory note, you're not necessarily giving them interest monthly, but on the back end, right? Like, you know, I'm curious about how examples of those structures because, like you said, you don't want to leave anybody. You want to say, oh, you only got 10 grand. I can't help you. Let me know when you got more. You want to build those relationships.
Mhm. You guys want to answer? You want me to answer? What do you feel like?
Well, I guess when you're, I guess to your question, is it that you're concerned with because you're not paying them the interest that now you got this one lump sum to pay that
No,
bill?
I'm more want to know how, how you guys approach it, right? Like if it's okay, I got 10,000, you agree on 6% interest of 10 years. Um, here's a promissory note. For example, I got 10 grand in my bank, right? In my high yield account, but I'm lucky if I'm getting 4%. Like,
Mhm.
sure,
Well,
if I don't need access to it, I'd love to,
yeah, I'll give you
put it in.
6% on that.
There we go.
There we go. That's how it works right there.
But but then that's a pool of money that's being, you're compounding interest in your company. How do you manage that money? How, is it, those are the things about how, obviously, you want to do the best by your investor.
Yes,
So,
of course. I think, we have it all organized right now. We're using, we use a simple spreadsheet, right? So it lists, what their initial loan's going to be, or what their initial loan was, what we're going to owe them, when we got to pay it by. That way we keep track. I mean, it's kind of that part is kind of simple as far as keeping track. I mean, use a spreadsheet, keep track of that. And it's not like we have 100 lenders with $10,000, right? It's one lender with 10, it's another lender with 13. And so we we have, I think, six total lenders right now. So it's not like you're managing hundreds of accounts. So that part is fairly easy to track. But yes, being aware of, okay, in this much time, I'm going to owe this money back, right? Um, so in any situation, you're going to reach out to that lender 4 to 6 months in advance and say, hey, your loan is about due. What is your plan? Are you enjoying, do you like the investment, or are you needing to pull your money out? So you're going to find out way ahead of time. I mean, I wouldn't wait till last month to do that. And Chad can give probably more insight on that than I can, but I mean, that is
Well,
the,
I mean, I agree completely with what you said, and I would just add to that, Anthony, that you don't, so the master promissory note is in the course. We just didn't address it yesterday. And you don't have to have it where it accrues. You can do it. So the ones that I have primarily still get paid monthly, interest only. So they get paid their interest just like a dividend. And the key to making sure that you don't overextend yourself is those promissory notes are included in your um, basically loan to value of your portfolio, right? So we talked about one mortgage on the property, making sure that mortgage is less than 70% of the value of the property. Well, you want to look at your portfolio as a whole and still stay below 70% as a whole. So, like Jim said, he does this deal 3 years ago, gets a loan for 70% of the value. Well, then it goes up $30,000. Now he's got too much equity in the deal, really, for trying to grow. So he can do another loan there and take more of that equity out. You just want to make sure that you don't go above that threshold for your portfolio as a whole.
70%. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, because I've been wondering how like Roots, does it and things that, other aspects where you don't have to be an accredited investor, but you can,
Yeah.
get a better interest rate. And it's like, okay. So against your entire portfolio, kind of, when you're looking at your business. So interesting. Okay. Thank you.
Because in reality, as you build a portfolio of rentals over time, you're constantly going to struggle with your debt getting paid down and the values going up and your return on equity diminishes, which is that's a much later discussion. But you're going to want to try to pull some of that equity out continually, especially as you're growing.
Especially if you're holding, if you're,
Yeah.
Yep.
that's the point of, keeping the property.
All right. Is there one more question? I didn't
That was
check.
that I had a question. That was my question on that first deal that you explained, where you bought it for 80, you put 80 in. It was worth so much more, so you took out the majority of the equity. At the end, because it sounded like it was significantly more, like did the rental still work for you? Like were you still cash flowing when you refinanced?
yes. And yeah, we put 41 in, we bought it for 41, put 41 into it. Um, yeah. So with the DSCR loan, so we had that one rented out. We rented it and then immediately did the DSCR loan. I mean, we pretty much finished rehab, had it rented out in like 2 weeks. And then as soon as it was rented, we initiated the DSCR loan. Um, and the rent for a DSCR loan, because they look at the rent versus mortgage ratio or something like that, it has to be at like what is it, 1.2 or
1.5.
1.3.
Two,
No, it's not,
two,
it's lower. It's like 1.2 or 1.3.
Okay.
So they want to make sure that the monthly rent and your monthly payment, that the rent is 1.3
Hi.
compared to the monthly
Yeah.
Okay.
rent. So yeah, the DSCR is not going to let you go into the negative. But yeah,
Gotcha.
that is, even with a private lender, I run the numbers, I look at what the rent is going to be and what the payment's going to be, right? But with a private lender, those are interest only.
Mm-hmm.
So those almost always
Yeah.
cash flow. As long as you're running your ARV correctly and you're getting the 70%, those are almost always going to cash flow, and they're going to cash flow Our the ones that we have that are on private lenders are cash flowing anywhere, $300 to $600 a month.
Mhm.
Um, and so, I mean, we have one right now that's a turnover, and they were paying $200-300. We were bumping them up slowly, but they decided to move out. They were $200-300 below market value. So once we get it turned over and rented, all of a sudden we're going to be going from like 250 cash flow to 500 cash flow.
Mhm. Okay.
And
Well,
that's, we run our numbers even with so our cash flow is, minus the taxes, minus the insurance, the
maintenance.
payment, but also we take out 5% for property management, we take out 5% for vacancy, and 10% for maintenance. So we're setting aside 20% off the bat, and then our cash flow is calculated after that. And our goal for a private lender, our goal is 200, at least $200 a door.
Okay.
DSCR, it's a little bit tougher because the interest rate's higher, and um, it's a little bit tougher to get that $200
Mm-hmm.
a
Uh,
door.
and just like we talked, so we went through the APOD deal analyzer yesterday and running those
Mhm.
numbers and figuring cash flow. But just like we talked about yesterday, running numbers conservatively and hitting that $200 a month target is different than when you actually rent the unit and you've been conservative on rent and you are able to rent it for a little bit more, and then you get pet rent and pet registration, and
Oh yeah.
you get all these extra fees, and you're not actually paying 5% in management, and everything is much better, but we're conservative on the spreadsheet and on the numbers on the front end.
Yeah, very conservative on the initial estimating on rents. Pretty much every time we've rented a house, it's been $50 to $100 more per month than what my original estimate was. Um, ARVs I'm conservative with. I mean, you don't want to be too conservative where you're pricing yourself out of deals either. If your ARV is too low and your rehab's too high, you're going to be passing up deals. So, I mean, you kind of have to, you want to be conservative, but not overly conservative.
All right, good
But
stuff, gang.
Thank you.
yeah,
All right, good questions, guys. Appreciate
yeah,
it. And Jim and Scott, thank you very much for coming on and sharing your story and experience. And I'm sure it was beneficial.
good. I'm glad.
So, um, yeah, we're getting lots of clapping hands here for you guys. Oh, even the exploding thumbs up. Those are the best ones of all. Nice. I like it. So, yeah, appreciate you guys. All right, everybody. I have a really good gift for you to help you out. So, in recent episodes, we've talked about some really great partnerships we have that will help any of you get motivated seller leads, right? So, you'll get a text when they get the lead and they'll just give that lead to you. Or we have a direct mail partner who will help with direct mail to make sure you can reach the people that you want and get those leads contacting you. Okay, great services, don't cost any extra. Just make sure that your marketing is impactful and you get a return on your money. All right. So the gift isn't related to those. The gift is that some people are kind of nervous by the idea, those services are great, but now I get a seller on the phone and what do I do? What do I say? Right? And it's kind of intimidating. Everybody, when they get started, feels a little intimidated or nervous by it. And really, you just need a script so that you know what things to talk about with the seller on the phone. You don't have to think about it. You just follow the script, have a human conversation with the seller, take an interest in them, and follow the script. Just that easy. All right. And so the benefits of the script are you don't get distracted in the conversation. You can just follow the progression of that script, makes it super easy, can give you confidence so that you know what to say when, and it actually helps that seller know that you're professional and serious and you know what you're talking about. All right. So you can get that script at truewealthinvestors.com/call script. And that will give you the free download so you can have that script. Then when that seller calls, you know exactly what to say. All right. I hope that helps, and I know it will. See you soon. We are adding new episodes every week, so make sure to follow and subscribe. If you are a real estate investor or want to get started investing and you want to grow or scale with our help, go to truewealthinvestors.com. That's truewealthinvestors.com and schedule a short discovery call. I'll look at where your business is and offer a proven plan to get you and your business to the next level. We'll see you on the next episode.